Good morning, everybody. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about lost synergy and how it plays out in practical scenarios. I'm going to talk about that link between knowledge and wisdom. So, knowledge seems to have a very progressive, forward moving energy as well as the accumulation of information. Wisdom is kind of an older, more relaxed, rounded version of knowledge where there's way less need for action. So it's kind of more you watch and then see, but still having a kind of deeper understanding of the knowledge. Um, so the relationship between these two concepts is very interesting. Uh, I'm going to have to give it to you an example. So, for example, our parenting style now is to kind of make sure we move the hardships out of the way of the children and make it easier and make sure they know that they can do all things if they want. They can become anything they want. And in this way, we kind of get rid of the old stigmas, rules, and regulations of past times. And the child then feels free to take on life and to do whatever it is that they want to do in life. This would be a very knowledge based way of looking at it. Now, let's take a little bit more wise way of looking at it. We know that when there is regulation or rules, in a sense, fair rules, and I guess to put it, it gives somebody a solid thing to define themselves around or against or with. And in that kind of pushing one's will against this thing or around it, we kind of gain a more understanding of self. We have to kind of see ourselves in the reflection of the world, I guess the best way to put that. And in doing so, we understand if we want to go towards it or go away from it. This teaches us something about ourselves. So then, what happens if you get rid of all the rules? Well, there's nothing to test one's, let's say, a character against or ability or will against. So then it becomes very hard to know what truly is important. So the child will grow up in a world where they're not sure what they want, even though they have the option to be anything that they want to be. And in fact, because they hadn't go through those hardships and hard lessons, then they don't know if they have the skill or power to achieve this goal. They don't have the kind of inner reserve to call on. This becomes very detrimental. So in this case, wisdom would keep the barriers there and just assist slightly along those challenges with support, with a little bit of guidance. I'd view this very much if we're going to put it into the family role, the grandfather, grandmother's role. They're not really going to jump to the occasion to take away the challenge from the grandchild, but they care very much about that grandchild. They've seen enough life to kind of come to terms with their own shortcomings and therefore know kind of the full cycle of things. So they don't just stop at the knowledge itself, they continue around the block and back to the same place where they can impart wisdom. Now, the parents would be more the knowledge based. Well, this is new, upcurrent social interventions and social thinking where the best thing to do for children is to take these challenges away so that they could be anything they want. Uh, as you could probably note, the older generation probably is morally against something like that. It doesn't make sense to them. You know, if they fall, good, they'll learn that getting up is important too. That kind of thing, more to the tough love, I guess. And in this way, we see the synergy between the two. So if we're ever going to try to make a major change, the idea is not really to change it. We already know the end outcome of that process. And if we change it, we then don't know the end outcome of that process in a way, in reasonable terms, right? And then we don't know how to impart wisdom on that situation. So we wouldn't know that, let's say, taking sports away, or essentially taking the winner out of sports in school, is a terrible idea. It seems great because then everybody wins, but then what happens to the children that uh, traditionally only found their kind of strength in sports? Now they don't have anything to be proud of. Now they don't have anything to deal with their frustrated energy of the challenges of childhood life. They don't have the ability to express themselves physically in a way where it means something, where they probably get the praise that they don't get in everyday life or home life, or in school. They finally get it through athletic achievement. What happens to them? There's automatically already something there for the academic people, even the people of the arts, music, and so on. But what happens to the people that are physical? We then see the downside of that situation. We have kind of taken away from one to give to the others. This is not Robin Hood, so we don't particularly want to have that mentality. We want to keep it a little more whole in our perspective and know that the child that is achieving in physicality needs to do so for their reasons, and taking that away by including everybody as a winner is not the way to solve it. We're better keeping it the way that it is, because that's easier to see the end outcome. That person will become an athlete, therefore go through life thinking as an athlete, but being able to strive against their challenges. We know ultimately in life that's not a continuous way to live, and they'll have to come to terms with things. But we know that kind of system if we pay attention. But what we don't know now is what happens to that kid that doesn't get to express that thing. How do they deal with it? I'm assuming it's going to have a hard challenge on their mental health, probably emotional health at that point. How are we going to aid these people? What are we going to do to sustain them later on in life? We don't know these things. This would have to be a new certain amount of years that pass before it even becomes recognized as a thing that is challenging, and then we'd have to create a therapeutic way of dealing with that, which is a little bit more tricky because it's a little bit more kind of away from reality in a sense. I'm not going to get into why that is because that's going to make this video way too long, but this is the understanding that we have to have with wisdom and knowledge. Thank you.